Okay, great, wonderful, awesome. So, now the question becomes, now that everybody keeps asking me the same thing over and over again, it's like, when's Fujifilm going to come out with a full-frame camera? We've already said that everything's covered with what they have already, so let's take a look at the facts. All forms of photography that you can think of are covered by DX and medium format. If you could tell me one, not your opinion, one empirically hardcore valid reason why you would need a full-frame camera in opposition to, say, if I had my GFX here, GFX and crop sensor camera. Just for any form of photography, please let me know what the answer to that would be. For DX, we have sports, action, wildlife, and macro covered. Now, obviously, Fujifilm does not have the lenses that Nikon and Canon does. We're not discussing that obvious foregone conclusion. That's a well-known fact. We're not discussing that. For medium format, we have product photography, portrait photography, commercial, architecture, landscape. I know that Fujifilm's working on a tilt shift lens for the GFX, a perspective control lens. Obviously, that's probably one of the last lenses in the far distant future for the GFX, and they are coming out with another medium format camera, a cheap rangefinder, and next year a 100 megapixel version of the GFX. So what form or modality of photography is not covered with DX or medium format? That's point number one. Point number two, Fujifilm would be the dumbest group of idiots on planet Earth to even think about entering the battle with Nikon and Sony. I'm not speaking for Fujifilm here, obviously, at all when I say this. If Fujifilm is sitting in a tree chewing on a candy bar watching Nikon, Nikon, Canon, and Sony murder each other over the full frame wars. Straight out of Lao Tzu's Art of War, Fujifilm has done an end run around all three of those dumbasses, Canon, Nikon, and Sony. And now they have professional DX cameras, and they have... By the way, most of you are not familiar, and nor have you tried medium format digital. But do you know, people say that, well, GFX is expensive. No, it's not only not expensive, it's extremely cheap, and it's made far, far better than its competitors using the same sensor. Let's look at the three competitors. Pentax 645Z, 2014 reflex camera. Horrible. Expensive, the lenses are expensive. Pentax is doomed. They're soon going to file for bankruptcy. We have the Mamiya Leaf, which I almost bought a few years ago. All of these cameras have the exact same sensor in it, by the way. The Pentax 645Z, the Mamiya Leaf, and then we have the Hasselblad X1D. Hasselblad, by the way, I don't know if I have the image here, but in Europe, it's currently half off, and it's $2,500. They can't give the damn camera away. It's got a lot of bugs and issues. It can't be fixed. You can't fix. Tap my mic here. You know, you can't fix hardware issues, design flaws with firmware. Firmware doesn't fix hardware. That's why it's called firmware, and the other stuff is called hardware. So here's the camera half off. They can't give it away. Fujifilm owns the field on medium format. Next year they're going to have a 100 megapixel GFX version. Fact, I've seen the sensor designation. At current 100 megapixel sensor is being used by Phase 1 in a specialty product for hardcore professional aerial photography. It's a 100 megapixel sensor located in this tiny little box. I forget what the model is called. And it's mounted to a huge ass drone, and you know they're going to use it for $1 million movies and whatnot. So it is a brilliant idea, right? And also for huge 100 megapixel shots of specialty aerial photography for like rich horse farmers that need a picture. That's obviously for really, really hardcore stuff where you can justify purchasing something like that. God knows how many tens of thousands of dollars it costs. But that's the same sensor that's going in the next version of the GFX. So there's not a single branch of photography that isn't covered by the medium format Fujifilm cameras. Right now there's just the GFX. 2 more cameras are coming. The rangefinder version of a medium format rangefinder version later this year. It's going to be cheap, relatively so, in the $4,000 range. Next year, the 100 megapixel version of the GFX. So you got 3 medium format cameras. Where is Sony or Canon or Nikon's medium format camera? And the answer is nowhere to be found. Did you know that Fujifilm was making lenses long before even Sony themselves existed? You know, we're not talking about Sony making cameras, we're talking about old Sony. You know, they're making Walkmans and... Do you know how long Fujifilm's been making lenses? Specifically, by the way, also medium format lenses. Back in photography and film days. I know I shot one of these 4x5 negatives on my Calumet 4x5, which is a medium format film camera, which of course I don't have anymore. Thank God, because I hate film. I process too much of it. I process all this stuff by hand, by the way. I got a lot of 4x5 negatives of mine. But I know I used a medium format lens with my Calumet. I forget which. I thought it was a 105 millimeter Fujifilm. Anyway, Fujifilm's been making lenses longer than Sony has existed as a company. So there we have it. All those people keep asking about Fujifilm. Why? Why would they? Why would they want to go to war with the dumbasses at Sony, Nikon, and Canon killing each other? You know, spend endless millions of dollars waging a war and a battle that would just leave them bloody and cut up, as well as the rest of the idiots, Nikon, Canon, and Nikon, Canon, and Sony. And everything they have already covers everything. And as I mentioned in the prior video, next year, Nikon is going to have a sensor range between 20, 24, and 47. That covers basically all the megapixel sensors of Nikon's cameras. 20 megapixels, 24, 47. So we have a spread like this. And for Fujifilm, we have a spread of 24 megapixels, 28 megapixels, 50 megapixels, and 100. So Fujifilm next year, 2019, will have a spread of cameras ranging between 24 megapixels and 100 megapixels. Nikon next year, now their medium, their large format sensor will be between 47 to no more than 55. It can't be, even if it's BSI sensor or a stack sensor, it still will be more than 50 megapixels. It could be up to 58, but still, we'll have a spread between 20 and 55 basically, versus Fujifilm's 24 and 100. Fujifilm has done a Lao Tzu Art of War end run around Sony, Canon, and Nikon in the camera department, and that's just a damn fact. That's not even rumor, belief, or opinion, or conjecture. That's just a fact. I love how all these Sony peeps keep chirping about the full-frame cameras that they have. This time next year, well, not this time, but actually about September of next year, Fujifilm is going to have three medium format cameras. The 50 megapixel GFX, the 50 megapixel, same sensor, rangefinder camera, and then the 100 megapixel updated version of the GFX. And then it will be all the Fujifilm people, you know, laughing at Sony and their tiny little freaking micro penis, micro-sized full-frame sensors and low megapixel sensors. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that neat how that works? Isn't that neat? And by the way, even though one of these sensors is Sony manufactured, Sony does not have a chance in hell of even thinking of coming out with medium format lenses. They can't even get their full frame lenses right. Sony has no chance in hell of developing medium format lenses. Fujifilm has been making medium format lenses, for those of you who didn't know, for decades and decades and decades and decades. A long time. Because, and it's not this exact 4x5 negative, which I did take, but some other ones. But I mean, I was using Fujifilm medium format lenses back in 1991 in photography school, so. Fuji, girlfriend. Mic drop. If you like these videos, you always click the link below, because as my picture indicates here, of the top 20 YouTube photography channels, I think I'm like number 13 or whatever, like who gives a damn, right? I'm the only one with no affiliate links, not selling a single thing, I have no sponsors or paid advertisers, and I'm not a corporate shill bunny. So any small donation is eagerly welcomed and appreciated. Or you could tell me to jump off a cliff, you know, like a lot of people do. Okay? Thank you. Goodbye.